Hey everyone, welcome to the Investor's Guide to Joy. My name is Paul Graham. Excited you're here. Today, we're going to be talking to RT, who I know who's in the oil and gas space. We're going to go through a number of pieces related to investing in oil and gas, the industry itself, what to be aware of, how energy is being impacted in today's environment, as well as the mindset of the investor and the fundraiser. It's going to be incredible and different type of conversation that you would normally hear. So take a listen and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Investor's Guide to Joy. My name is Paul Graham, and I am here with Rey Treviño III, who I got to know over the past really year, both with travel, adventure, investments, and just fun. So thanks for being here.
Oh man, thank you for having me, Paul. And yes, I'm excited to be on the Investor's Guide to Joy. And yes, we really have done a lot in a year, haven't we? We've traveled, we've worked together, we've even shared some time together, just outside of work, and it's really been a great time. And what you've been doing for the last over a year is really exciting, and I feel like some of it has rubbed off on me and my brother Ruben. As you know, we're a family company here. And so we just really enjoy your mantra and your charisma, and your work ethic is just so awesome. So thank you, Paul, for the opportunity to come on your podcast today.
Yeah, brother. No, good things. What would maybe be one of, or maybe the thing that's stood out from you of just maybe either being around me or what I've said or done, or kind of that aura or presence kind of piece?
Yeah, I think it's the mindset and the attitude. It's hey, and also I think it's the way you say certain things. I mean, I don't want to compare you to Yoda by any means, and how he says things backwards, but sometimes I think God knows, and my business partners can tell you, and friends can tell you, and I'm sure you can too, that tell me that I'm not the most, sometimes when I'm not the best communicator, as I mumble right there. And I may have my point get across, and it gets across, but it may come across a totally different way and than what it was meant to be. And so I think that's something that you've really done very well at, is your articulation and your speaking has been very, very exciting. And that motivation that you do, Paul, with your groups is just awesome. And, I haven't met one person yet that goes, oh, Paul's an SOB. Everybody's a Paul. In fact, I remember when I was in Austin, and there were just so many people there that were like, oh man, Paul's great. And so again, just kind of that whole way that you're leading these groups and these teams is just very exciting to watch at this time.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I appreciate that. And it's also, exciting to receive and do. One reason why I'm also so passionate about, working with, individuals like yourself, especially with the projects you have, is, beyond the person, but just this concept, right? So this idea of the Investor's Guide to Joy is really a story of myself where, I initially joined the GoBundance community, of which you have to be at a set, net worth to be in, GoBundance itself. And so there's kind of a feeder program kind of to there. And, I was able to sextuple, whatever the, phrase is, in the matter of 18 months, my net worth. And that was incredible. Also, that then changed my mindset and perspective to then say, hey, this is a connection person, individual. Can they help me with my net worth directly or indirectly? If yes, then great. If no, then, hey, I'm kind of busy. Hey, it was good to meet you. Let's see you later, right? Mm-hmm. And so it became this transactional type mindset, which oftentimes I really find is within the Austin community.
Yeah.
Not that we need to go down that, path, but it's just to say that I found that I was so, focused in that piece. And there were several times where I was forcibly, removed essentially from that environment. I bought a short-term rental in Canyon Lake, and I was there for almost 3 months, setting it up, right? And why I say that is because it gave me the perspective that how I was showing up and what I was interested in, looking for, really just then to being, I kind of lost myself, right? Because I was so focused on that end goal and end piece. And so where I wanted to take some of this conversation is around this idea of how almost to bucket and categorize people, right? There's individuals that are so stock, 401k focused, right? Like my parents, to the point that it's oh, let's get this icy at the movie theater. And it's no, we got to save for retirement. And it's okay, so those opinions aside, right? Because that's just one perspective. The other is to say, hey, yes, I'm going to invest in real estate, either through, direct controlling sort of natures, right? Of I own a house, but then I also have an investment property, or maybe I buy commercial, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And there's definitely advantages of that. Then there's this idea of passive investing. And so there's a number of things that I think we can, go down in conversation relates to passive. The one thing that I would share as I've gone through this idea of like, guide to joy again being, hey, I was so focused on the net worth that I wasn't really doing the things that I truly wanted to do from a joy standpoint. Like I love everything with water, right? Being on water, in water, drinking it, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
It's then to say that it gave me a perspective of like, what is it all for and like why, right? And I'm not just investing for the sake of like numbers and dollars, but actually like the life that I wanted to leave or live. With that being said, there's this passive part to it, right? And so I found two things that one, oftentimes people don't do passive investments because that means that they're maybe just not aware of education or things like that. And then the other piece is actually on this idea of control. And so wanted to talk about, two things. So first is going to be, mindset, and the second would be control. So as it relates to like the mindset of someone investing, just I guess really in general, by trade have a oil and gas syndication that I've directly as well as my team have helped support, fund, underwrite, etc. So familiar with it, but it's also to say that like you talk to a lot of investors, as do I, right? So what kind of almost like stories do people tell themselves as an investor? Like, do you find that investors are resistant to investing and then they need to like, look at your specific project? Or what have you really found like the mindset of investors as you've talked to, hundreds of people? Yeah.
Yeah, no, great questions there. And first of all, that Austin community is great that you're in. And I think there's a lot of untapped opportunities there in Austin, even for oil and gas, for as liberal as Austin is. And I'll say that here and anywhere else, that there are very many opportunities. And the wealth that is moving to Austin is just an abundant amount right now, I guess. But no, to answer your question, I think one thing that I'm finding as an oil and gas investor myself, and that's something, I think this is probably the first time I've actually used those words for myself.
How does it feel?
Weird, because I know people that are in real estate and they go, "Oh, we're real estate investors," and I'm like, "Okay," and they go, "Well, we're the ones that are still doing the investments," and I'm like, "Well, I guess that is technically me. Yes, we're a second generation oil and gas family, so I'm investing in wells. Yeah, am I overseeing a project right now? Absolutely, and that's what we do for a living is we invest in oil and gas. So at the end of the day, I call myself an oil and gas man. Well, guess what? I'm also an oil investor. But what I'm finding is a lot of these individuals are looking for that relationship and that comfortability. I think that is, and also let's not forget returns, and they can put it in any form or fashion that they want in the in what ranking they put those. But that is what people are looking for, and I think the comfortability and the returns are just as important as a relationship. You got to build a relationship with people because at the end of the day, a passive investment is an investment that you are literally passing to someone else to your money. And that's a lot, Paul. To be asked and for me to want to even ask individuals, hey, why don't you come do this project with me is nerve wracking. Okay. But for them to then turn around and go, yes, let's do it. They're putting that trust in me. That's the relationship part of this. Now it's my job to go get these returns. So I think it's just so important on the comfortability and the relationship with these individuals, but that's what they're looking for is a passive income. They're looking for that true mailbox money that people have been touting now for almost 50 years, right? And really probably even longer. But this mailbox money term really probably came around in the 80s during the first oil boom. And mailbox money is meant to be something that, hey, you are hands off and you're receiving a check every month. And so I think that to provide that, you got to have a comfortability level. And right now, what I am also finding is that with the interest rates as high as they are, people are looking away from traditional investments, whether it's stocks, real estate, and they're looking for alternatives like oil and gas, where they know that, hey, this is going to be a long-term investment, and we're going to see long-term revenue streams because at the end of the day, we all know no matter what political side we're on, oil and gas is not going away. So it's a great sound investment, but it is considered an alternative investment. So, I think that's one thing that I'm finding again is comfortability and, relationship building is what's key when it comes to talking to individuals that are looking for a true passive investment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so one thing I want to add is like an asterisk here is that specifically with oil and gas, one thing I found, I mean, former commercial real estate, broker, I've seen, a dime a dozen of different PPMs in the real estate alternative investment space. But it's then to say like a multifamily property is a multifamily property is a multifamily property, right? Here's the four walls, here's the rent roll, here's what it can do, here's the ARV, right? Like very straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I can, kind of share my like perspective on it, but I'd, like to see you like add to it. So what I've really found like within the oil and gas space is that there's poke a hole in the ground type investments, right? Then there's, rework, and then there's like additional drill type piece. There's also horizontal and vertical, wells as well. What, are there things that you would add about that? Like my intention of just like getting this little asterisk is to say like, I'd be damned if someone, is like, oh, oil and gas investing, seems like the bee's knees. I want to look into it. Oh, I met Bobby at this networking event. He pokes a hole in the ground, but, we talked about oil and gas investing. Like my point is like, it's not all the same. So is there any other like color that you would add to it? Because there's a great, amazing humans out there, right? In terms of like relationships, but there's also the return projections and there's the actual like operator, returns that are, distributed, right? You can have great people who have really good, projections, but then there's also the people who then provide those actually really great projections. So just want to see if you want to add anything else to like educate people quickly on like investing in oil and gas of other things to think about.
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I think the track record is so important to look at and ask them. People ask me all the time, and I don't mind sharing with them what our track record is. And have we hit some dry holes in the past? Absolutely. It's not 100%, every well is different. But so that's one thing I say. But then also look at the team that you have in place. I've been in the oil and gas space now since 2011. I started literally as a rig hand on a drilling rig, and here I am. My father's been in the industry since the late 80s. And, so we didn't really grow up the traditional route. Hey, you're going to be in the office as soon as you graduate from college. It was, I graduated from college and I was out in West Texas slinging chain. Then I worked my way to the completion side of flowback when oil and gas, when the shale boom really kicked off in 2012, 13, 14. And then I had a chance to come back to North Texas. So I say look at also the dynamic of the team that you are going to be working with. But then, like you mentioned also, every project or prospect is different, Paul. And the way that we approach it is, one, we're using our own money. That's how we started at Pecos and as a family, is using our own money. And we still do. We still, it comes out of our back pocket. Is how are we going to get the best, quickest returns on our investment? And so we look at older wells that are already in existence. So there's no drilling costs. There's no knowing whether or not the well is going to actually hit oil. We know there's true oil behind pipe. Now, the question is going to be, how much are we going to get? For an example, we might take a well that maybe is doing 5 barrels a day, clean it out, get it up to 30 barrels a day. Guess what? That's a 6-time increase, right? But then the other side is also the new wells in the same area. Here an old well might give us 30 barrels a day, but a brand new well, when drilled and completed properly, can get us 100 barrels of oil a day. So we like to hedge and get those new wells with the old wells and protect ourselves in a way with our investment dollars and our investors' dollars, to where it's like, hey, we know that not everything may be a home run, but we're going to successfully do this. For an example, I've got one project that we kicked off last August, and that was when we started producing oil. Okay. We didn't start laying out checks for another 60 days because that's usually the way it works.
Sure.
But to this day, as we record, they've already gotten back a gross over 40% on their investment in that time frame, and that doesn't include the tax advantages that they get as well. So that's something else I definitely want to just say about investing in oil and gas. But no, definitely, don't be hesitant to ask them, hey, what kind of record do y'all have, and how do y'all, what's the best way y'all litigate or mitigate risk and lower that risk factor? Because at the end of the day, we are literally putting money in the dirt, and our goal is to bring it back up through oil and gas. So we love it. And we definitely want other individuals to be as educated as possible. So we don't shy away from any questions.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, great little asterisk. So next piece is on the sense of control. So I really found that like there's this idea of, I believe it has to work this way in order for it to work, right? I have to have enough cash flow for my real estate portfolio to then, go do these, kind of one-off things, right? Like a podcast or raise funds or, things like that. How have you found you've been able to like give up more control, right? Because initially, just like as a family, you had, your business and then have slowly said, hey, no, we want to, give up control in the sense of like returns. What is that like mindset shift and like process been like for yourself? And I guess also, maybe the company too.
I think, let's talk returns real quick and then I'll go into control. Anybody in the oil and gas industry, we think we know it all. And I think the best ones will also work with other people. And so as I say that, it's a blessing when I get on a rig site and you have the confidence of so many men there that are doing their job and they do it right. So you got to let those people have the control that they have. And that being said, I also know that only, the man upstairs can truly control how much oil comes out of the ground. I'm going to do the best that I can. Again, I'm going to have the best team out there. But at the end of the day, that's where the true control comes from. However, am I going to be able to make sure that we are extracting from the right location, make sure that we got the right equipment in place? Absolutely. And those are things that we can control. And getting back to the physical control, Paul, when my dad started this in this industry in the late 80s, he was just doing the non-operated participation in working interest. And so that was really him on his end relinquishing any control to somebody else to earn that money back for that mailbox money, for that passive income.
Yeah.
And over the years, we were able to form our own team and our own operating to where then we took a lot of that risk on ourselves and that control. And what we did was, again, we've lowered our risk in our drilling ventures by controlling where we're drilling, how we're going to drill, and what we're going to drill and where, or rework. And so having that operating company, Pecos Country Operating, it's given us the opportunity to control more, but also save a lot more. We save on average now about 32%, believe it or not, 32% by us drilling our own oil and gas wells and producing our own. And that's something that we started in 2016 doing. So about 10 years now. And, we've really seen a difference. And that's one thing I think our investors have seen also, that normal operating expenses over the last year have been less than 10% a month.
How have you seen like investors essentially like relinquish more, control in their, investments? You mentioned like passive income is then like passing that, opportunity like to someone else to provide, income for the dollars that they're giving.
Yeah, I think again, it just comes back down to relationships and that communication. I think we do a pretty good job communicating with our investors, say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what's going on. We send them out, a very detailed statement every month with their info and what they have going on, Paul. We also think that these individuals, a passive investment has to take an understanding from the investor itself that, hey, I am giving this to you to give back to me in more abundance. And that is, I think, one of the biggest honors that I have had in this role at Pecos and Treviño Resources is working with these great investors that have handed me these checks. And it's such an honor and a blessing, but also it makes me nervous because these people do have that trust in me to give them those returns. And it's an honor to carry that and do that. So I think that's something also that is very exciting to say is like, hey, I have earned the trust of a lot of individuals that see passive income investments as, hey, go do this for me. And I'm going to stay here and go do the work for me, as they would say, and I'll be right here at the mailbox ready to go.
What has that been like for, yourself? I mean, you mentioned like, it is nerve wracking and rightfully so it is. I've thought about this, but just wanted to have you like expand, like as you've done more, nerve wracking things or, it's been more continuous because certainly like the fund has picked up and there's been more and more. So the like amount of investors and the amount that they, have invested, what has that process been like from a mindset perspective for other people who are also doing, nerve wracking things? What have you learned and found and kind of grown from?
Oh, well, what I found is that you got to put your boots on every day, no matter what, and tie them up and get to it. I mean, it's work and it's fun work. And I do believe truly that if you love what you do, it's not work. And so that's one thing that I have always enjoyed about being in the oil and gas industry. And you know what? It's not going to stop. You want to be successful. You want to be on this mountain that they all talk about. You have to continue to work to be there. And I'm not saying you need to work 24/7 by any means, okay? But it's been an honor to go to work for these individuals. And that's what I tell them. I say, hey, I'm going to work for you. And that's truly what I mean, is because at the end of the day, I am here to do a job. And that job is to produce oil from, not drill oil wells, Paul, but produce oil from the ground and then distribute that oil check that comes out of the ground to those investors. And it has just been an awesome thing. And like you said, we have only grown here, especially in the last 12 months. And it's been great to bring on new people and introduce a lot of people to the oil and gas industry that may have done an investment in the past, but they haven't dealt with a family like us, or actually any family offices. They've dealt with large operators, or these giant true funds that are out there, because as you know, we're not a fund. And so they get that one-on-one, they get the pictures. They are more than welcome to come out with me and my family to the drill site while we're out there, while the drilling team is out there, or the completions. So it's been really an honor to put my boots on every day, because that's what you have to do. Not to sound like a cheesy guy, but hey, we all have to get up in the morning and go do this. And the more people that have asked to come and do this has only made me more motivated to get up every day and do it.
Yeah, seems like you have shoelaces with your boots. You get up on morning, put your boots on, and tie
I know.
shoes.
Well, you pull your bootstraps up, and some guys got the boots that tie up, and me, I just pull my boots on. So
okay.
I kind of.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm thinking of just cowboy boots, but yeah, no, I have had my fair share of steel toe, at least in some of my days. You mentioned this, piece of identity, right? In the sense of how you're like, hey, I am also an oil and gas investor. What has that mindset shift been like for yourself? Because identity is a very easy thing to change, but it requires permission for you to do so. And then you have to be open to the result that it gives. So what was that process like in your mind to be, before oil and gas investor person, and then after? Any resistance points or challenges that you found through that process?
Well, this is to sit here and tell you that I'm an oil and gas investor, Paul. That's a new one. What I usually like to tell people is I drill oil wells for a living, and more importantly, I produce oil to make a living.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's where my mindset is at, and that's still my mindset. But hey, to sit here and say I invest in oil, absolutely, and it makes sense. It truly does. I mean, I got a picture of an oil pump jack behind me. I've got my two books that I'm currently reading, Game Changers and rereading Fossil Futures. Because you want to continue to always be knowledgeable in the industry, right? And that you're in. But for me to now come out and say I'm an oil investor, it just makes total sense. Why? Because I am truly investing my time, my education, and my due diligence in my field. So it makes total sense. So I really appreciate the individuals out there that kind of showed me that here in the last couple of months and say, hey, you're an oil and gas investor. I'm like, well, I really am, aren't I? So yeah.
It almost reminds me of like when you got that adult tooth kind of growing up. It's like, that's an adult tooth. It's like, yeah, that is an adult tooth, isn't it? So no, and that's fair to also then say, like, sometimes you're further along than you think you are, and sometimes you already are the thing that you wanted to become, and it's just realizing it. One specific thing I found this past week is this idea of success. And it's like, when are you successful, or what is a successful person?
Yeah.
And Patrick and I talked about this on, his, podcast bit, where it's success is defined by you. If you think that success will always be like a number or a thing, you'll always be chasing it. But if you are success and you do successful things, then you are a successful person. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's, again, just kind of that awareness and like eye-opening, again, just like mindset shift, where you're just like, oh yeah, no, I'm already here. One thing that you are is very passionate about oil and gas. I just have to ask, like, do you name the wells, or like, is there any emotional attachment to them, or like what?
All the wells, actually, yes, they get named, and they have official names with the National Register of the Associated Petroleum Institute, the API. Okay. But do all of our pumpers, like, so really, like, I have one that's called the Jacksboro South 27, and that's the official name. But to my pumper, it's the rusty one over there on the other side of the hill. And then the one that's on the other side of the hill is, well, that's the left rusty, So yes, no, the pumpers definitely name them always something different other than the actual numbers. That's one thing, and so yeah, no, we definitely name them. So yes.
Okay. All right. But not Sally or Jack or Susie or
No, not Sally or Old Blue or anything like that.
Blue. Yeah, certainly. So it's been great, a lot of talk about, mindset control, identity shifts, for people in all aspects, either life or maybe even just, investments. And, we talked about how this is like the guide to joy. And I shared my story of how just, was constantly focused on like that net worth piece, and then really just changed my perspective to then say, hey, success to me is really living out my ideal day. 2 to 4 hours of focused work each day, morning routine, doing some sort of exercise, and then meeting one new person, and then doing something, that's eventful. So maybe it's with friends, family, maybe it's just myself, staring at a wall, because that's, what I wanted to do. So that's my definition of, success. And that to me is like the purest form of joy, is being able to like do, that. In this guide to joy, like what is like the one thing that you would put in, right? So like a mantra, a motto, maybe even a question, perspective, something like that you would leave, with what you know and who you are.
Yeah, I mean, what would I say? Right now, I would have to say, and I may butcher it a little bit, but Ben Franklin had a great little quote, and it said, "With energy and persistence, anything is possible." And so I do believe that anything is possible. Again, I do believe in the man upstairs and the God Almighty, and that He sent His Son here to die for us. So I do believe that all is possible. And don't like y'all are saying, what is success to one man is not success to another. And so it's not as easy to define it as it used to be. I think every generation is different, obviously, and the generation, and I do think the days of, hey, you're going to work and then stop and enjoy the next 20 years, I think those days are gone. I think you have to enjoy life as you succeed, and you need to enjoy the successes. And if you don't do that in your 30s and 40s, then you won't have, I think, the same connection with your family in your 50s and 60s. And, I do think that's very important. So, again, my thing to add to your book of joy is that, hey, through energy and persistence, anything is possible.
There you go. Yeah. And that's a great one. This thought just came to me, so I'm curious on your reflection of it.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself like praying about the investments that you're about to make or that you have made?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I do. I pray to God.
Yeah.
And I mean, for everything, and for guidance, for success, for abundance, for prosperity. I mean, I think what we're doing right now is so important on so many levels. And the best ones right now, I can say, is to continue for individuals like our investors to prosper. And one thing my father said years ago was, no matter how high the tax rates go, don't let them make you stop earning a dollar or continue to grow your wealth. And so that's one way right now that I can say we can stick it to the man. I'm not a hippie by any means, but no, absolutely. I do pray, and I pray for the success of not only myself, but others as well. There is room at the top for collaboration and for more than one person. I do believe that also. So, great question there.
Yeah, love it. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing your wisdom, thoughts, and perspective. Appreciate you, and we'll absolutely keep in touch.
Yes, Paul, thank you so much, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, brother. Hey, one last thing before you go. I wanted to share my mission while on this earth, and it's to help educate investors about different opportunities, share mindset tips on how to change our perspective, and different things to really experience more joy in our lives. If this resonates with you at all and you enjoyed this episode, please share it with friends and others to help grow the community around the Investor's Guide to Joy. Leaving a 5-star review also helps grow the show and get connected to more people and share our experiences along the way. Thanks so much for joining, and can't wait for you to listen to the next episode.